this is hot off the press, and we're going to be going through the results that came through. So the survey is one we did with teachers and with pupils, and we asked them the teachers particularly, to ask their pupils aged 13 to 18 years, a few questions to find out about what they like about their learning. We got the teachers to speak to their pupils aged 13 to 18 years and ask them a few questions about their learning currently, but also in the past, and also with the teachers themselves about their learning experience and their teaching in the classroom. And the surveys were open from the 18th of August to the 24th of September. And what we've decided to do actually is we've had some very good responses from teachers. So we've had over 200 responses from teachers, and we've also had a similar number from pupils. But what we'd really like is actually to get some more responses from the pupils. So we're going to keep it open for a little while longer. So first of all, we're just going to look at the pupil surveys. So we had 213 pupils who responded. And with these, we noticed that some of the responses were quite similar. So it was probably sort of sets of classes that were actually doing the survey together. So that's something that we have just got to sort of take into account when we're actually analysing the results. So just looking quickly at the sort of the background and the areas. So the majority of the pupils were sort of Key Stage 3, sort of 13 to 15 years. Mostly based in England, and that probably represents the number of schools across the UK. So the majority of schools are in England. And then also the level of learning. So we're looking at sort of Key Stage 3 and 4, and then just a few at post 16. And then we've got some interesting information about rating your food nutrition learning experience overall. And this is mostly positive, which is really good to see. But then we move on to rating the different parts of your food and nutrition learning. And healthy eating and nutrition and cooking are positive, but the where food comes from isn't quite as positive as the other two. So that is something that perhaps we need to be thinking about, and it does come out in the surveys as we go through them, and it has been mentioned quite a lot already this morning. So thinking about why pupils scored question 4 and question 5 the way they did, that was actually rating their learning and the sort of the individual parts of the learning. And it was really good to see that the majority of pupils, 47%, said they enjoyed their practical lessons, and they in fact wanted more practical lessons, which is great. The other really nice thing to see is about good teaching. So 23% of the respondents said that they rated their learning as good or very good because of the good teaching that they'd had. But there were a few negative ones. So not enough provenance, we've mentioned that already. COVID restrictions, that's not surprising really, considering where we've been at. Dislike the theory, too exam focused, but some people said they enjoyed the theory. And then, as Ewan mentioned earlier, pupils talked about enjoying independent learning. And that was certainly something from my experience as a teacher that the pupils really enjoyed. And then talking about the impact of COVID. So hopefully we're out of COVID now, and we're not going to go back to what we were going through before, but it has had an influence and will have influenced the pupils' responses to this survey. So we thought it was useful to highlight. And fairly obvious, a lot of pupils haven't been cooking. They've done much less than usual or less than previously. But equally, there is actually quite a good response about people saying that they've done about the same, more in previous years, or even much more in previous years. And we're wondering whether that's because a lot of teachers really embraced teaching online and recorded their lessons. They did practical lessons over Zoom, they'd recorded videos, and also those teachers who actually cooked with the key worker pupils during the lockdowns as well. And then what we did was we actually asked pupils to give us 5 words that sum up your food learning experience. Now, this was a bit challenging for some pupils, but using this word cloud here, it really shows us visually some of the things that they said. So fun. Now, fun was 53%. So it's great that the pupils are enjoying the lessons that they're having, that they're interesting, they're educational, they're exciting. And on the side of the screen, there's also some the sentences that we were given, some of the words: informative, fun, exciting, enjoyable, helpful. But equally, there are some that said that they were boring, but they also said that they were stressful as well. So one of them said nutritional, fair, enjoyable, crowded, and loud. And I know that some of the issues that you've been talking about with the barriers is often to do with space and equipment and class sizes, etc. And that is something that is obviously impacting on the pupils themselves. And then thinking about pupils' knowledge and skills. And the one I wanted to sort of really just draw on here was the where food comes from. And that's probably the sort of the most negative from this particular graph. And I think probably from this survey and from all the presentations we've had today, the where food comes from, sustainability, the environment, that's something that definitely we need to do more on. And is there anything else that they would have liked to have been taught? So this question was slightly difficult to analyse because 47% of people said that no, or they were unsure. So this is actually a bit difficult to interpret because it could mean that they're actually happy with everything they've been taught, or they hadn't actually really thought about the question and just didn't know. However, those that did answer, the top things were additional practical, further baking skills. So obviously we would need to think about taking into account what Jenny was saying in that video, that baking is an important skill to teach, but we need to think about how we're going to do that in a sort of a healthy and sustainable way, a balanced diet. A wider variety of recipes, more focus on nutrition, food science, and provenance. And this question was asking the pupils what they've made in school and also what they would like to cook in school. So the graph will show you the green, which indicates what they said about the dishes that they'd made, and the red is what they would like to make. And that's quite a nice balance there. So lots of pasta dishes were made, but actually they would like to make even more. Cakes, of course, I think we're going to find that cakes are always a popular thing. But again, it's thinking about how we could make those in a healthier way. And then there's also some nice variety of different dishes and fish and seafood and meat. And the pupils don't particularly make those in school at the moment. That's what they're asking to do more of. And then we asked them to think about a dish that they made at school. What was it and why was this memorable? And this was really lovely to see the results of this. And what we've done is we've put them into sort of what we call buckets because there were so many responses. And they really came under some sort of really nice reasons. So one of them, which was enjoying a return to cooking. So one pupil made fajitas and they cooked it post-lockdown, and it was so nice being able to cook again, which is just lovely. Being creative and independent. This one I thought was great, and it was said focaccia, it was memorable as we got to be creative with our designs. I think that's possibly a lockdown activity, and it was very popular to do focaccia art during lockdown. It was one of our remote learning activities as well. So that was nice to see. Acquiring new skills and feeling pride. This is really good. So Cornish pasties, it involved marinating, cooking meat, preparing short crust pastry, filling, baking, serving with garnish. The most important thing I take from this is that the student said, I would never have believed I could bake tasty and healthy foods when I took my first food lesson. So this is a pupil perhaps doing GCSE or higher in Scotland, national. Then, so they've obviously moved on, they're using their skills and developing other dishes, which is just great. Then talking to the pupils about what should be kept in the same in lessons and what should be changed about food lessons. So they're again talking about more practical cooking lessons, and they're also talking about greater variety of foods, including culturally diverse dishes. Longer lessons, we all like longer lessons, but they want longer lessons so they could make more complex dishes and then also have more independent choice around the foods and ingredients that they use. And this, we think, gives them a will to take control over their own learning. And then moving on to the teacher survey. So we had just over 200 teachers responded. Interesting, most of the teachers had been teaching for 15 years plus, but we did have a range of teachers who've been teaching for a different amount of years. Again, most teachers were based in England, and then again, nice range of current or past level of teaching. One thing that came out from one of the questions was about a whole school food policy, and this has been mentioned a few times today. So we asked about whether the schools had a whole school food policy, which includes food education. But surprisingly, the majority of schools said that they did not have one. But even more surprising, a significant number of respondents didn't know. And I think that's something that probably needs to be addressed, because particularly us as BNF, we would say that it really needs to be a whole school food approach. And one of the polls that we did earlier on, where we asked about the where you wanted to be involved as your role, 84% of respondents today said that they wanted to be involved in a whole school approach. So I think that is definitely something that is worth looking into further. Then we talked about liaison support and engagement, and the majority of teachers indicated there was little liaison with other subjects. So that again is something I think that teachers could really get involved with and speak to their colleagues and see how they can actually get some cross-curricular work going on, and particularly around RSE and PSHE, because you're in a fantastic position to be able to support those subjects in your school. And then the next question was about engagement and support. And it was really good to see that most teachers felt that they were well supported by their governors and their LCT. And then also their pupils are fully engaged in their food and nutrition education. So there's perhaps less engagement with parents, and perhaps that's maybe expected at secondary because parents in general don't have so much involvement and engagement in their secondary education of their children compared with perhaps the level that they had at primary. And then we asked teachers what they would like to see in 5 years' time. So again, we said 5 differences, and we got some fantastic responses and very long responses, some of them. Teachers had a lot to say about this. And again, we've sort of grouped them because there were so many comments. So there was lots about kitchen technology and equipment, practical lessons. There was different ideas about what food should be about. So whether it should be about life skills and healthy eating, or whether it should be careers and jobs. So that is going to be important to try and get the balance for that. Recipes and alternative options, pupil skill set and engagement, funding for ingredients. So lots of different things that teachers were wanting to see that would be different in 10 years' time. But they also talked about budgeting and showing pupils how to shop and look after themselves. And then actually this is the emphasis of different topics within their teachers' curriculum currently. And great to see healthy eating, nutrition, food preparation and cooking. What I really liked to see here was that it was knowing how to feed myself well, which I thought was really good. But actually there was limited emphasis on food science. So that perhaps was maybe because we had, it's not covered so much in Key Stage 3, and maybe the impact of COVID and the changes to exams have affected what's done at GCSE in England around food science. And then this would be sort of going forward. So this, again, food science, teachers saying that perhaps food science shouldn't have so much emphasis going forward. And some teachers have said that this should be part of the science curriculum, but we think it's a great opportunity for pupils to apply their science in a really practical way. So it's great for the pupils to be able to do both if possible. Recipes, what's important? So this is a question, and on this screen we've got the results from both the pupils and the teachers. And on the left-hand side, we've got the pupils, and the right, the teachers. And this is what they think is important in recipes. And it's interesting. So the pupils think that they should be tasty. That's the most important thing. And the teachers think the most important thing is they should be low cost. But then after that, the second most important thing for both is they should be healthy. And then the third for both is everyday stroke family recipes. So I thought that was interesting. And then what was also really interesting, if you group together three that are in yellow there, so reflects my culture, includes diversity, and food from around the world, those are actually really significant. And that's what we've been talking a lot about today, about trying to take into account the pupils' own experiences and their needs, and making sure what is done is relevant for them now and in the future. And then we've got here about recipes, and this I thought was interesting, and also compared with some other comments later on in the survey. So again, we've got the pupils and teachers, and we were talking about sort of traditional recipes, or whether they are modern around the world, or whether they're uninspiring. The word we used for pupils was boring. But in the main, both parties felt that recipes are mainly traditional, but they also reflect a modern food culture from around the world and are inspiring. So I thought that was quite interesting. But teachers later on said that they would actually like to see more diversity in the recipes. So it's a good thing to think on. So this is another word cloud, thinking about pupils' current learning experience. And what I did with this one is actually had a look back at the pupils one and identified the words that are the same on both. So both teachers and pupils think that the pupils' learning experience is fun, enjoyable, interesting, life skills, tasty, but also that stressful comes up on both of them as well. So again, that's something that we need to think about, is how we can make things less stressful for both the pupils and the teachers. And then this is looking at it in the future. So again, I've done the same thing. So, but this I've highlighted in blue are the teachers' words which relate to now and also in the future. But I've also highlighted some new ones as well. And this time we've got calm. So rather than it being busy and stressful, teachers actually like their pupils' food learning experience to be a calm experience going forward. And then also teachers would like it to be valued. That hadn't come up before, and I think that is also a very important thing. Now we're moving into sort of what a key food skills, knowledge and experience. If we're thinking about inclusion, cultural diversity and modernity, what is really important? So foods from around the world, that again, is something that has come up time and time again. So thinking about diverse recipes, thinking about different types of ingredients that are available around the world. And then environment and sustainability. Now that, again, has come up today and is important to teachers and to the pupils. Cooking skills, food preparation, plant-based eating, budgeting, we mentioned that before, food provenance, that links into sort of the environment and sustainability probably. And then food science does actually appear on this one, whereas teachers previously said that they didn't feel that it was necessary in a future curriculum. So that's a sort of slightly different answer this time round. And then also for me, those of you that know me, safety and hygiene, always important. So I'm glad to see that on here as well. So what should be kept the same in food lessons in schools? So this is from teachers. So practical lessons, again, food science appears on here. So we'll perhaps need to have a look into these results a little bit more. Cooking skills and food preparation. And then interestingly about qualified teachers, and that we know is perhaps an issue. And again, food safety and hygiene appears on this. As far as pupils, practical lessons were also the top response from the pupils. They should be kept the same in future lessons, along with not sure, and then everything, which I thought was great. Training and skill development for staff, thinking about what we're going to do in order to make sure that we've got the staff that can take this subject forward. And then the top three for this was practical food skills and cooking, healthy eating and nutrition, and sustainable healthy diets. So again, all the things we've really talked about today. And then our final question was actually about what needs to be done to move the subject forward. And again, we've sort of put these into buckets. And so teacher training and support, and this was quite sort of a pointed comment, I thought, was the very real shortage of qualified, knowledgeable food teachers is affecting what can be delivered in the classroom and hindering real learning enjoyment in this subject. And I think that's something definitely that needs to be taken on board. Smaller class sizes and longer lessons need to be made mandatory. Raising the profile of the subject, that again has been talked about. Whole school approach, again, that's something that teachers perhaps need to speak to their schools about, making sure that the subject is really embedded in everything that's done in school. Pupil experience, obviously that's probably the most important thing. Enhance the pupil experience with visits and speakers. Other people have said that. And then changes to curriculum and specifications to meet changes in society and industry. As Jenny said, it's really important to make sure that we're moving forward. And again, as Roy said, this isn't a short-term thing. This is looking forward for the next 2, 5, 10 years to make sure that we've got a really good, sustainable curriculum around food and nutrition for the future. So on this PowerPoint, which we will share with you, I have got a few slides which are summary slides. I'm not going to go through them now because they do actually include everything that I've said today, but they will be here for you to look back on again if you're not going to be listening to the commentary as you're looking at the PowerPoint. So finally, the next steps. So the results will be further analysed. I just want to say a huge thank you to my colleagues Ewan and to Sophie for their help with this. They've been working really hard this week getting these analysed, particularly there was so much free data in it, free text. It took them quite a long time to get it done. So we will be looking at them further and analysing them and making those results available again at a later stage. But as I said at the beginning, the pupil survey will remain open, and please encourage your pupils to take part. They don't need to be currently studying food, so we can get a really good range of pupils. But what's really important is for us to know what they think and what they want going forward.